My name is David, and I would like to welcome each and every one of you to Sunday service today. And today is a special day in that it's the last day of our Kriya 2 initiation weekend. And we have a number of initiates in the room with us here today who have decided to deepen their practice by learning more techniques of meditation that can help assist in their journey. And it is such a blessing that each one of you has come this weekend to Sunburst Sanctuary. I know that you look at it like a blessing for you, that you have this place to come to. But we see each and every one of you as a blessing to all of us who are here more often than you have the opportunity to be. And this is a very, very symbiotic relationship that we have. It's the continuation of a vision that Norm Paulson, the founder of Sunburst, had many, many years ago when he was still a monk living at the ashram in Mount Washington with Paramahansa Yogananda. And he saw people meditating together and working together and living in harmony together in brotherhood. And that vision was over 70 years ago now. And he dedicated his life to helping establish a place where this could take place. I want to start by reading from Yogananda, from the book, The Yoga of Jesus. The bodily covering of the soul is threefold in nature. The physical body, with which man so affectionately and tenaciously identifies himself, is little more than inert matter, a clod of earthly minerals and chemicals made up of gross atoms. The physical body receives all its enlivening energy and powers from an inner radiant astral body of lifetrons. The astral body, in turn, is powered by a causal body of pure consciousness, consisting of all of the ideational principles that structure and maintain the astral and physical body instruments employed by the soul to interact with God's creation. The three bodies are tied together and work as one by a knotting of life force and consciousness in 7 spiritual cerebrospinal centers. A physical body instrument empowered by the life force of the astral body and the consciousness from the causal form. In its residency in the triune body, the soul takes on the limitations of confinement and becomes the pseudo-soul or ego. If you read Yogananda's writings, and many of them are excerpts from talks that he gave over the, I guess maybe 35 years or so that he lived in the United States. There's so many paragraphs, or a couple of paragraphs like that are just jam-packed with such deep truth. He was so tapped in to how the cosmos really worked and how we as human beings interact with it and how we're connected to it. And his whole life work while he was here and before he came here was to, again, just like I was saying earlier what Norm had done, Yogananda's whole life work and his focus was to create space where people could come and learn about how they could have this same direct connection that he had with Divine Spirit. And he was very clear about it, as are all of the saints and sages, men and women down through the ages. They have all said, this is for everyone. And I know a lot of times when we hear that, it's easy for us to imagine that God realization might be for everyone else, but it is for each of us as well. And we have to take possession of it and know that we are a divine spark of spirit that has been sent out into creation to experience life. And that no matter how lost we seem to get in our attraction to the senses and our identification with this, what Yogananda referred to as a clod of earth, this physical body, at the very center of our soul, there still is always this divine spark of divine consciousness that never, ever becomes diluted by the experiences that we have in these bodies and in our other bodies. And this really, for me, having this knowledge, just having this knowledge, it fits well with the topic today, which is living a balanced life, soul study. It kind of sounds like two topics, but if we are truly living a balanced life, we are giving our soul an opportunity to learn from the experiences that we give it through the balanced living and the life choices that we make. When Yogananda arrived in the United States in 1920, he addressed the International Conference of Religious Liberals in Boston, barely 2 weeks after he arrived here. And he was not really real good at speaking English yet. But from all accounts, he was the hit of the conference. There were leaders, religious leaders there from all over the world. And the topic of his talk was the science of religion. And he emphasized again to everyone in that talk, and for all the talks he gave there going forth, he emphasized how by practicing meditation, meditation is not necessarily a worshipful exercise. It's a devotional exercise. And by becoming devoted to Divine Spirit, we are connecting and creating a relationship with this divine consciousness that set us forth. This relationship is already there. Divine Spirit has the relationship. We're trying to just wake back up and realize just how close we really are and how dear we are to that divine consciousness. I wanted to read one quote from that talk that he gave, The Science of Religion. Intellect gives only a partial and indirect view of things. To view a thing intellectually is not to see it by being one with it. It is to view a thing by being apart from it. But intuition is the direct grasp of truth. It is in this intuition that bliss consciousness or God consciousness is realized. I have to imagine back in 1920, the people hearing messages like that, and how, at least for some of them, they must have been just groundbreaking. This idea that we can perceive God through our intuition. We don't just have to worship God as someone that we want to spend eternity with after we leave these bodies, but that we can have a relationship right now, and that God is talking to us through our intuition every day. I think that Yogananda would be really pleased to see us gathering here today, and to see that there are people who are interested in deepening their practice and learning the Kriya 2 meditation. Again, it's a continuation of his desire that was put in him by God to spread God realization to all who were interested and would make the effort. And some might say, Yogananda not only would be pleased, he is pleased. Because there are many who have experienced Yogananda alive and well through vision, through communication, even though he passed out of his physical body over 70 years ago now. We acknowledge each other and the efforts that each of us are making to improve our lives, to expand our awareness, to have soul awakening. But we can also acknowledge those who stand in the light just outside of our vision and who are always here supporting us, wanting to help us be the best that we can be, inspiring us to do things to bring balance into our lives and to awaken our souls to the reality of who we really are in these bodies. I want to do another reading now from Norm Paulson, from his book, Life, Love, God. And I brought a copy just to show everyone Norm's beautiful face. What a wonderful brother he was, I can tell you. And again, not only was, but is, because again, he has been detected by many, helping to support the work here, even after his passing. This reading that I'm going to give is from chapter 25 in his book called Cosmic Embrace. And at this time in Norm's life, he had left Mount Washington and the monastery where he was with Yogananda. There had been the time for the young monks to take further vows that would include just becoming monks for the rest of their lives. And Norm knew intuitively that he was not destined to just live in a monastery, and that he couldn't just in good faith in his heart, he could not take those vows. And it was really hard for him because he loved Yogananda so much, and he had learned so much from Yogananda and from living in the monastery. But he left, and he was only 22 years old. He had been there since he was 17. So he talks about before this vision that I'm going to share, he talks about how he had become so discouraged. He was working for the telephone company, and he thought everybody was going to be so interested in his story and the visions that he had had and the things that had happened to him. But he said it was just to the contrary. None of the men that he was working with from that generation cared at all about the things that he had experienced and what he had to share. And he said they probably were just saying, oh, Norm's just always talking about those yogis. Like they just didn't care. So he was very discouraged, and he was thinking, maybe I need to go back to the monastery. I feel so alone. I'm so... he was just in a depressed state. And he said it was a Friday evening, and he sat to try and meditate, and he couldn't meditate. His mind was racing. This is something we can probably all relate to. And in frustration, he threw himself face down on the bed. And suddenly, through the back of his head, he could see through the roof of the house, which had disappeared, and a clear blue sky. And in that sky, there was a brilliant orb of light. And this is what has been described as the first creation of light. The very personal being that many people have experiences with when they have a near-death experience. And I don't remember all of the details of that vision, but it really, really imprinted in him this deep, deep turnaround of peace that he had not had before. And he knew that he was on the right track and that he just had to keep going. And this out of this light, the voice came, "Look at me." And so there was a little bit more to that vision, but he said for the next week, he was working at the phone company. He just could hardly even keep his mind on it because he was just so impressed by this experience with the light. So then the next Saturday, and this is the vision I'm going to read, he sat down to meditate. Now this is not the experience that he had of full cosmic consciousness. That was the weekend after. This was like he had 1 week, the light comes to him. The next week, this experience happens, and then the next weekend is when he had his experience of his true cosmic consciousness. But this experience he had actually lasted about 3 hours that he describes here. The inner vision of the cosmic sun, the body of Christ, had tremendously strengthened my devotion and concentration. I was performing perfect circulations of the light without any distractions. The intensity of my concentration this day was greater than I had ever before experienced. The spiritual eye flared up in bright colors. Rainbows of light were piercing the atmospheres of inner space. Suddenly, I felt an incredible presence moving toward me from above. Softly, I began to hear the words, "My son, my son," floating through inner dimensions towards me. From deep within came surging forth of energy from the center of my consciousness, which seemed at the time to be in the region of my heart. I saw the outer fabric of my physical mind, the self-conscious ego, and the personality which I had developed stand aside as the force of the pure self within my soul came forth to meet the apparition. The pure self, my true image, spoke directly to the presence. O Mother Divine, I thought never to see you again. From the essence of her immaculate presence, I heard, my son, I am always near you. Norm goes on to explain in more detail other things that happened during that experience. I would encourage anyone who hasn't had the opportunity to read Norm's experiences to do so. Yogananda founded SRF, Self-Realization Fellowship, which I'm sure that probably everyone in this room or most of us are familiar with. Norm went on to found Sunburst, which I know we're all familiar with. And at Sunburst, Norm was inspired to develop the 8 paths of conscious living as part of the teaching here, and to identify the 12 virtues that are always available, and they're living energies that are available to us all of the time. This is a real roadmap. The 8 paths of conscious living and the 12 virtues are a real roadmap and a blueprint for living a balanced life. You will really recognize it as deep soulful study as you internalize these paths and virtues and make them a part of your life. There are other ways to get balance in your life, that's for sure, and other really good ways. And everyone is different. Some people find that balance when they're kayaking in the ocean, others when they're mountain biking, others when they're running or hiking. Just being in nature and observing nature itself can give you a deep, deep balance in your life and give you deep, soulful study. Here at Sunburst, we just simply offer this place as a space to come, as a retreat for your soul, to close down the outer senses of distraction that are so prevalent in the world today, and experience and enjoy the natural state of being. Both Yogananda and Norm emphasized balanced living, but the one thing they always emphasized the most was the practice of meditation. Because it's through meditation that each of us can have direct experience. Not just a worshipful state of mind, but a direct devotional experience with our Divine Creator. Let's spend some time now together practicing our meditation, whatever meditation technique we may have or we may choose to use. When I was walking up to the temple this morning before service, I could hear Marianne playing her guitar out on the veranda and singing. And it reminded me of the old days when we had a lot more music in Sunburst. And it was really wonderful to hear that music this morning. And it makes me think, too, that another thing that can really connect people with their soul is music. Learning to play an instrument, playing an instrument, singing along. These things put us in tune with our soul. Seems to be a universal language that goes right along with the song of the universe, which is Om. I like to study, obviously I like to read a lot of Yogananda's writings. I like to read the Persian poets, Rumi, in particular, Hafiz, both of them. Each person has to find things that will speak to their soul and encourage them to dive deeper into their inner path. And there's plenty out there to help do that. We are astrologically in the last day of Libra. It was really a long month of Libra. It doesn't change to Scorpio until tomorrow. And Libra, the virtue of Libra, which we've talked about in a few other Sunday services this year, or this month, is equanimity. And equanimity is balance in reality. And one of the visuals that, within the astrological imagery of Libra are the scales, the two scales weighing out, bringing balance into our lives. And I was reflecting on many, many years ago, I heard someone talking about the true point of equanimity is right at the third eye within our head, because that's the fulcrum within us, the point of singularity, where we weigh out all of the options that we have in life. So the true point of balance isn't necessarily out on either side of the scale, but it's at the fulcrum. It's at the point of being one, where we no longer are affected by or impacted by duality, but we're able to live our lives from a centered place. We're able to experience the drama of life going on around us and continue to have true balance in our lives. That, my friends, is a gift that we are all seeking in our lives. And a wonderful one, and a wonderful reminder during this month of equanimity and true balance and deep soulful study to find that point within us where we can live our lives the fullest and not get swept away in the drama of duality.
be born again, born of the Spirit and the water, child of the Mother and the Father divine, born in the arms of the circling wind, born in the arms of the circling wind. Marvel not when I say you must be born again, born of the breath and the fire, child of the holy desire, come forth within, come forth within, come forth within, come forth within. Deep in the silence shines the sacred light, watching and waiting for every soul. Oh, my child, stand in the sacred light. Let it guide your way home. Won't you guide my way home? Marvel not when I say you must be born again, born of the Spirit and the water, child of the Mother and the Father divine, born in the arms of the circling wind, born in the arms of the circling wind, free in the light again, my love, free in the light again. I am that I am, my love, free again.